And welcome back everyone to the video series dedicated show on MTV that likes to waddle more than a Miami Dolphins wide receiver. That's right, we're talking about The Challenge Season 38, Episode 7, and we're going to start off talking about where last episode left off, and that was Jordan and Anissa winning against Laurel and Jack and coming back to the challenge house. Jordan and Anissa are feeling themselves. They are hyped, feeling great. And you know who is not feeling great? Jay and Michelle, who feel like they're in the hot seat yet again, because for the second week in a row, the person that they sent directly into the elimination is coming back into the game. And so they know they have a big old target on their backs. Then we get a secret team meeting between Tori and Devin wants to ask his partner, Tori, if they want to re-up their deal for another one-day deal or 3-week deal with Michelle and Jay. And Tori says, no, I don't want to do that because they just sent in my best friend and my ex-fiance, who are like the real people I can really trust besides you, Devin. I don't want to make the deal because if we win, I want to send them directly into the elimination. And Devin is thinking, how about we just make the deal just because, you know? What if by the off chance they win again, they won't say our name? Now, peeping them from across the yard is Amber, who has been skeptical of Devin and his deal making. And Amber's like, Devin's making deals with every single person in this house. And she's not wrong. She was able to catch that pretty easily, meaning Devin isn't as sly as he thinks he may be. Now, the next morning, Amber is talking to Nelson, and they're having a chat about how they feel like they can look out for each other. Nelson guarantees Amber that the next time that him and Nerese win, that Amber and Chauncey's name is not even in the general facility, that they would not be put in via the Deliberation. And Amber says that Nelson is the only vet in the game that hasn't actively targeted her. So coming into this game, she feels very safe with Nelson. They talk about how maybe they could look out for each other. Move to a conversation with Amber's other half, Chauncey, talking to Jordan, and they're talking about the move that Jay made last week, and they're talking about how, hey, maybe we should look out for each other. You do your moves, I'll do my moves. Let's not actively target one another. And they even do like a handshake, and Devin can overhear this, which is spelling bad news for Amber and Chauncey, because you know that's going to be used against them either in this episode or next episode. We find out it's going to be this episode in a big, big way. We move on to a day trip where everybody gets on really nice clothes, goes out to a bar in the daylight, and this is where we see a lot of conversations happening. Bananas is talking with Darrell about how there's a big alliance on the other side of the house. They have a lot of numbers, and more than ever before, the vets need to look out for each other. Darrell takes this conversation to Veronica, and they both agree. This is just an alliance for convenience. Where was this talk when we first entered the game, Darrell and Veronica think? It's a great read. Fessel and Casey talk about how this season is quote-unquote interesting. That conversation yielded little to no strategy talk or real information on this game. I don't know why it was even there. Anissa and Jay kind of get into a little bit of a spat at the bar. They're talking at a very high level of the move that Jay made last week. Anissa clearly wasn't a fan of it, of course, and Jay and her just aren't really seeing eye to eye at this point. Everybody moves back to the challenge house, don up their challenge gear to head out to meet up with TJ to do this week's daily challenge called Peeking Blinders. Everyone will have to run down this long road, this long trail, to get to an answer key. One partner is going to have to balance on one foot on a pole that will lift blinders to show off an answer key to their partner, who is memorizing the shapes and colors, to then run the long trail back to their station to replicate this pattern. The team that can finish this first will win into power and win safety. I have to say, I really enjoyed this daily challenge. It reminded me of Battle of the X's 2, Don't Forget Me, where the guys had to lift up that giant crate lid, and then their partners had to replicate that pattern running up a giant hill to get to their station, and then they had to keep doing that over and over and over again. I liked it back in X's 2, and I liked it here. We can see that Nelson and Nurys are fast. They are fast, and they are by far the best team. They're in the top 2 of this challenge from the very beginning, and they never let up. They have their foot on the gas, and they're always going. Devin and Tori are keeping up with them, but they're consistently like a couple of seconds behind them at every single step. Now, the teams that aren't faring the best in this daily challenge is Darrell and Veronica, Jordan and Anissa, and Amber and Chauncey. Now, after hearing what the daily challenge was, I knew that Darrell and Veronica, Jordan and Anissa were going to have a tough time via this run. I thought Amber and Chauncey would knock out this run, as Amber, if we remember back to Double Agents Finals, was crushing it with the endurance, with the speed. It just comes down to the puzzle for them, and realistically, Darrell and Veronica was not doing well with the puzzle, the same with Anissa and Jordan, so they weren't doing well on either end of this daily challenge, and Amber and Chauncey was just having a really tough time with the puzzle. It comes down to a 2-team race, realistically, as it looks like it's Devin and Tori versus Nelson and Nurys. They're coming down to the wire. They just need to know where the top 2 blocks go, and Nelson and Nurys were able to pull out this win. It took 54 dailies in between his last daily win to this season, and now look at him. It's just 2 episodes later, and he gets another win. Nelson and Nurys had the speed, had the stamina, and Nurys had the brain power to memorize all the patterns and the colors and the shapes. It was absolutely incredible. But coming back to the challenge house, Nelson has a really tough decision to make. He is interconnected with pretty much every single team. So this is going to be an episode where he is picking a side of the house to play with and roll with for the rest of the season. There's no more playing all different sides. There's no more having your feet in every single doorway. It's over. You're picking a side, and we see him talking to Jay and Devin, trying to get an idea of what decisions to make. Devin is really pushing for Nelson to make a big move. He wants Nelson to put up Bananas and Nani. At least that's what the edit is saying. I can only go off of what the edit is saying. He's bringing up Bananas and Nani, Darrell and Veronica, and even brings up Amber and Chauncey, where Jay is like, no, don't put up Amber and Chauncey. They're not winning anything, and if anything, they're a number for us. This is where we move to the deliberation, where Nelson and Nurys are talking, and Nelson brings up Bananas and Nani's name first, and he wants to send them directly into the elimination, and then he brings up Jordan and Anissa, and possibly that could be the pairing to face off in this week's elimination. Nurys wants whoever they call out, which at this point is Bananas and Nani. If they're calling them out to go directly into the elimination, she wants them to go home. She wants no blowback from this move because she doesn't want her and Nelson to be in the same predicament as Jay and Michelle currently are. Nelson brings up, what if we put up Bananas and Nani, Jordan and Anissa, we want them to go into elimination against each other. We can put up the friendship teams of Amber and Chauncey and Darrell and Veronica. They're friends with us. We tell them the plan. They should save each other in the draw. There we go. We got what we want, and everybody that we want to stay safe stays safe, and we move on with the game. And Nurys says, let's do it. So the nominations are Darrell, Veronica, Bananas, Nani, Amber, Chauncey, Anissa, and Jordan. And after looking at the nomination board, this is where everybody's like, this is like the 6th time in a row that Tori and Devin have not been nominated. Something smells fishy here. And Nani's like, you know what? That is pretty fishy. But also, why isn't Fessel being nominated? Especially with the history that him and Nelson have after Double Agents, when Fessel wanted to go up against Nelson, a friend in the Hall Brawl, play dirty, and take him out of this game, and take him out of the running to win a lot of money. That's a good question there, Nani, but we never get that answer, although I think it's because Nelson and Fessel are very close friends. I know that Jay has said in his Instagram Live that him and Fessel are very good friends. They're just not showing it in the edit. So I think there's a lot at play with why Fessel is not being nominated at this point. Let's move into the interrogation where Nelson gives the lowdown to Darrell and Veronica saying, we're not throwing you in. What we want is Bananas and Nani, Jordan and Anissa facing off against each other. And we put you and Amber in the draw to save each other and give you the best odds to not go into the elimination. And then Nelson even goes as far as to say, I 100% guarantee you're not going to compete tonight. I 100% guarantee you're not going into the elimination. Which in my brain, I was already sitting there going like, Amber and Chauncey are each getting a ton of confessionals. Something bad is going to happen. Amber then says that she can trust Nelson 100%, that there's no doubt in her mind that she can trust Nelson. And then Nelson then gives Darrell and Veronica 100% guarantee that they're not going into the elimination this episode. And I was like, well, I know where this is going, but let's see how we get there. We move on to Nelson talking to Jordan. He says that he liked Jordan coming into the game, knowing that he could work with Jordan in this game. But then everything that happened in last episode where it was Jay versus Jordan and Nelson knew he was going to have to pick a side, he decided to pick Jay's side. Amber and Chauncey come in. Amber wanted a heads up. After Nelson gives them the plan about the draw and who he wants to go in, Amber says, I totally understand that, but a little bit of a heads up would have been great. I trust you 100%, and then you kind of blindside me by throwing me into the nominations and possibly seeing an elimination. Then she goes on to say that Nelson is in her top 4 teams that she's looking out for, and Nelson says, well, that's great and all, but you're not my top 4 teams. Ooh, gut punch to Amber and Chauncey. Amber is pretty frustrated and downtrodden to hear that, so they leave pretty sad, and then Bonani's comes in, and of course they're pissed. They're trying to do everything they can and say to not be sent directly into the elimination. But right now, at this moment, Nelson and Nerys still want Bananas and Nany going up against Jordan and Anissa. That sounds like a great elimination to me. Let's have a battle for the ages. Nothing could change the pathing that we could have Bananas and Nany versus Jordan and Anissa. Right? Let's move on to the bar scene where we have Amber and Chauncey who are frustrated. They are fuming and they're saying that everybody is playing Devin's game. He is the biggest snake in the house. He's pretty much the puppet master is kind of what they're getting at. And Amber and Chauncey are pissed and they're talking pretty loudly enough that Nerys can hear them and what they're saying. And she goes and tells Nelson about what they're saying about Devin. And then Nelson goes and tells Devin about what Amber and Chauncey are saying about Devin, which then leads Devin to say that Chauncey was talking to Jordan and making a deal to take out Jay's alliance and align himself with the opposite side of the house than from Nelson and Jay. Nelson, hearing this, is like, I've been made a fool. Amber was crying about how I betrayed her and how she's not in my top 4, but yet here her man, Chauncey, is making deals with the opposite side of the house to possibly take Jay, my number 1 BFF, in the game, and possibly me out of the game. Nelson and Nerys go to confront Amber and Chauncey. They deny that Chauncey denies ever making a deal with Jordan, that he was just talking with Jordan. He didn't want to actively target each other. And that he didn't make a deal, even though there was a handshake and a deal in some sort of way was sort of made in that moment. This leads to a big old fight that happens back at the challenge house where Devin has a conversation with Michelle at the fire pit. And Devin wants to know every single thing that Amber has said to her about Devin and Tori. Is she wanting to target us? Did she tell you to target us and to put us up? Michelle denies, just says that Amber questioned why I wasn't even thinking about putting you up on the block. Devin doesn't buy this for a second. He gets louder and louder. Michelle then gets loud to try to defend herself. There's people in rooms eavesdropping. There's people around the fire pit forming. Nelson is even getting involved, saying like, cite the lie. Nothing, and I mean nothing, is getting accomplished except for Devin putting both Amber and Michelle on blast in front of the whole house, trying to discredit both of them in front of the whole house. And that's when Jay says, nothing's getting accomplished. Let's all go to bed, sleep on it, and we'll have cooler heads in the morning, and maybe we can talk about it and come to an understanding. Tori agrees, everybody goes to bed, but we do not see anybody talking to each other, at least not Michelle, Devin, All we see is Amber, Michelle, and Veronica all talking. They seem to be all on the same page that Devin is making deals with everybody, that possibly he is the biggest snake in the house, and that was all a ploy to get the fire off of Devin and Tori and put it all on Amber, Chauncey, Michelle, and Jay. That's when we have everybody get on their challenge gear, head down to the zone to meet up with TJ for this week's elimination, and TJ asks for the 4 teams to all join him, and that's when TJ turns to Nelson and Maurice, asking them who do they want to send directly into the elimination. We all know that it was going to be Amber and Chauncey being sent directly into the elimination, really putting that 100% guarantee that Darrell was not going to see the elimination this week. His chances going really, really small. And then those odds really shrank when we get to the draw and Bananas and Nany get to pull the safe dagger for the second week in a row. They are first and they pick the safe dagger again. It reminds me of Dirty 30 when Jordan kept on pulling the double cross over and over and over again. And that's where we see Bananas and Nany choose to save Jordan and Anissa. So for this week's elimination matchup, what we were supposed to get, or the original plan of what we were going to get, has now flipped to where we have Amber and Chauncey versus Darrell and Veronica in this week's elimination called Deep Web. In this elimination, both teams will start at the top of their tubes. They're going to have to shimmy their way through the webs all the way down to retrieve a puzzle piece and then get all the way back up. Once you have all 8 of your puzzle pieces, then you can start solving your puzzle. First team to solve their puzzle wins, stay in this game, and the loser will be sent packing. I really enjoyed this elimination as well, and this reminded me of Trapped from War of the Worlds 2, where it was Jenny versus Nicole, as well as like a mix of that elimination with Web of Lies from Dirty 30, where we saw Veronica actually do that elimination against Anissa, and I think she was able to win that elimination as well. So that was promising on Veronica's part, but I also knew that the hardest part for Veronica was not going down, but coming back up. This was a tough battle. I had a feeling that Amber and Chauncey were going to do really well, strength-wise and endurance-wise. My thought process was, if Darrell and Veronica could get to their puzzle board while Amber and Chauncey were still confused about what they were supposed to do with the puzzle, because coming into this elimination, hearing that there was a puzzle, I know that's an equalizer, and I just don't have the biggest confidence in Amber and Chauncey's puzzle abilities comparatively to who I thought was going to be a great puzzle master in this game, Veronica. However, even with both of them retrieving their 8 puzzle pieces and both getting up to the top, I was thinking, oh man, this is where Darrell and Veronica post a huge comeback. I kind of wanted to see Amber and Chauncey win back into this game because of the drama that was going to get stirred up in the game with them coming back into the game, where Darrell and Veronica would, I think, kind of fall back into the shadows. However, that wasn't the case. It seemed like Darrell was doing majority of the puzzle, which Darrell is a good puzzle master when it comes to tanagrams. But when it comes to this puzzle, which I don't think we've seen on the challenge, at least not recently, but this was a unique puzzle that I've never really seen before, either in the challenge or outside of the challenge, but both teams are having a really tough time with this puzzle. They were taking a lot of time to do it, but finally, Amber and Chauncey were able to finish up this puzzle, win, stay in this game, and sadly, Darrell and Veronica had to leave the game. They had to exit. It's really sad to see. I like Darrell and Veronica. They're legends in this game. It just seems like they were having a really tough time finding their footing in this game when it came to the political side, the strategy side, as well as all the daily challenges. And they were also nominated a few times already. So I think it was their time to go. It's sad to see both of them leave at this time, but I'm actually really happy that Amber and Chauncey were able to win. I think that this may motivate them to do bigger and better things in this game, as well as let's call some people out. This is going to get the drama on another level going into the next episode. So I'm very happy to see Amber and Chauncey come back into this game, and maybe they can win and really stir up the house a little bit more. I would love to see it, but we'll have to wait until next week to see if that happens. But that is it for this week's episode. What'd you think about this episode? Let me know down in the comment section below. What'd you think about Nelson and Nerys winning another daily challenge? Nelson winning 2 dailies in one season. Who would have thought? What'd you think about their nominations? What'd you think about all the drama that Devin was stirring up? And what'd you think about their decision of sending Amber and Chauncey down? Do you think that was the right decision? Or do you think they still should have went with the original plan of sending Bananas and Nany into the elimination to possibly face off against Jordan and Anissa? Let me know anything and everything down in the comment section below. I want to give a special shout out, thank you to everyone who supports me over at patreon.com/angelcakevids. Thank you for your support. Thank you for your generosity. Thank you. And thank you to everyone who is watching this video up to this point. I'll be back really soon with more Challenge 38 content, more challenge content, more content in general. But until then, peace.